Happy Loser Wednesday, everybody. This is the day where we celebrate some wins and we mourn some losses.
Agonizing
And
losses.
agonizing some losses because it is finally week 14, which is crazy because it feels like the season just started. But, man, 14 weeks in, but fantasy football is still going strong for most of us. So tonight, I want to welcome everybody to the Fantasy Football Podcast, Buzz Podcast. With me, of course, Cyclop, Keith, myself, the Commish,
and Kenneth.
And Kenneth has called in before we even finished the introduction. How you doing tonight, Kenneth?
Hey, pretty good. The reason why I was calling is basically twofold. One, I've just received word of an update regarding a future game. The Browns-Giants matchup, week 15, that has been moved to the Sunday nighter. And the 49ers-Cowboys, that has been moved to 1 p.m. on CBS.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually the first time that the Cowboys have been flexed out, which is very interesting. And I think that shows you the state of what's happening in Dallas right now.
Right.
I was hoping, Miami was hoping that they would be flexed with their game on the 20th. But it turns out that it's Cleveland. But actually, we have some really good primetime games coming up this week in Week 14. Tomorrow night, we have New England and the Rams. Sunday night, we've got the Bills and Pittsburgh. And then Monday night will be a fun one. That's the Ravens and Cleveland. So we actually have some good primetime games coming up. What else you got, Kenneth?
Secondly, I made claims for a Mike Williams and a DeAndre Swift. Are either one of those wise moves?
DeAndre Swift was available on your waivers?
Yep.
Can I get an invite to this league? Swift was on the waivers.
Definitely. When Swift is healthy, Kenneth, and that's a big win or if. When Swift is healthy, he's a starter. There's no doubt about it. We saw what Adrian Peterson did this past week. It's not typical of what Adrian Peterson's going to do week in and week out. But if DeAndre Swift is available, I'd grab him. You probably have better running backs to start.
That's what I would imagine.
Can't hurt to.
I do have Gaskin, I believe, on my roster. But I do have questions regarding Brandon Cooks and I believe Myles Gaskin, because I've heard word that both of them are questionable.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as Mike Williams goes, he's just going to be a boom or bust guy. He's going to get a couple catches, or he's going to have like 3 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. I would go with the more conservative with him. If you have there's a lot of other receivers to pick up right now that I think have much bigger upside than Mike Williams. So, I'll be discussing that.
Judy, I have him on my bench.
Okay. I'll be discussing it, during the show when I get to wide receivers, updates and whatnot. So listen to that and maybe look at one of these guys. If DeAndre Swift is on your waiver pickup, most of the guys that I'm going to discuss were probably on your waiver pickup.
Yeah, so what we're going to do tonight, and it's a good way to introduce what we're going to be doing on the show tonight, is that we're going to go through each position and we're going to give everybody updates on each position and also recommendations on who to pick up in that position, who to drop, who to stash for the playoffs. So if you just hold on, keep listening like you do every week, Kenneth. We appreciate that. And, listen and you'll hear, hopefully, everything you want to hear about each position.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kenneth. Take care.
I mean, I want to be in a league where DeAndre Swift right now is available on the waivers. That's all I'm saying.
All right. So if anybody has any questions whatsoever, I know the playoffs are coming up. Some playoffs start this week. Some playoffs start next week.
Right.
Either way, give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ, or you can comment in Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and we will get to your comments on the air right away. we will break into our normal programming just to answer your questions. So send away, ask your questions. We're here for you.
Okay, so as you say that, we actually have our first comment. I'll throw it up here. And this is Josh Allen or Tannehill and Cooper or Deontay. Wow, that's good options to have.
Good problems to have, yeah.
And, Tannehill, they haven't been winning, but he's been lighting it up because they've been behind. The defense has been getting gashed. So they're having to throw to get back in games. And Josh Allen was surgical on Monday night. He looked great.
Yeah, and I think what you're thinking, Jonathan, is possibly the fact that Josh Allen, who you would normally start, is playing against Pittsburgh. So you have that feeling probably that why not go with Tannehill? I really, and we've talked about this over and over again, you've got to start your aces. You've got to start the guys that are going to go week in and week out and give you those points, even if they're playing against a Pittsburgh. My opinion, Josh Allen. We saw what Alex Smith was able to do against that defense. They're losing linebackers right and left. You're going to see a lot of passes to running backs, tight ends. I don't know. It would be hard for me to bench Josh Allen.
No, I got to agree with you. Josh Allen is playing again, kind of all world. He fell off a little bit. He's back. That Pittsburgh defense is banged up. That offense isn't doing as well. So they're not holding on to the ball as long. And the other thing to consider in this, I believe Tennessee is playing Jacksonville. So that's going to be a very heavy Derrick Henry run the ball game.
You would imagine.
Right. They're not. Well, it's true. You don't know anything. This is the NFL. But I would go with Josh Allen. Like Commish said, play your
as far as Henry. But keep in mind, the Jaguars have been scoring. And Tennessee got eaten up on defense the past couple games. So if that happens, they're going to be throwing to stay in the game. So just keep that in mind. All right. And then Cooper or Deontay, again, a great, problem to have here. Deontay Johnson is the guy in Pittsburgh. He gets the most targets.
Is this Cooper Kupp or is this Amari Cooper?
I'm thinking it's Amari, right? Because
I would imagine it's Amari.
Last name. And I hate that guy, by the way. But yeah, I would go with Deontay Johnson in this regard as well. You got a nice matchup against Buffalo. It should be a high-scoring game. And
it's actually not a good matchup for Deontay, but that shouldn't be the reason to not start him. Take a look at his, and I got to go to my team here. Take a look at his targets. Deontay Johnson. Last week, 12 targets. The week before, 13 targets. The week before, 16 targets. Then 11. Then 10. Then he had the one with 3. Then 15. This guy, even though they have Schuster and Claypool, it doesn't matter. He is getting the ball. They are throwing them. He's got great chemistry. You got to go with Deontay here.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So we do have another comment here. Let's see. It says 2020. What's with the ball? So Kenneth is coming out strong and throwing down.
Yeah, no shit.
Nice job, Kenneth.
I don't know if it's the bald head so much as it is the lighting, because I think I've got the bald too, but I only got the one spot of light here.
It's the lighting, it's definitely some
radiating.
So listen, I'm very glum today. I don't know what are those. There's 6 phases of grief that you go through, so I need a little bit of brightness to get me through my grieving process. So thank you for being understanding, Kenneth. Yeah. So let's move on.
Why don't we discuss, because I'm sure why don't we go over what happened last night? So out of the 3 of us, who's in the playoffs, who's out of the playoffs? Our playoffs start this week. So I'm in. What about you, Commish?
Oh, I'm not only am I in, I'm first seed. I'm number 1 seed.
I'm 3rd seed. I had a pretty tough start to the season, but I won 5 out of the 4 or 5 out of the last 6 to make the playoffs and get the number 3 seed. What about you, 2020? How did it end up?
So we're going to start with the position of quarterback, and we're going to start with the updates, and then let's go into the waiver wire add-ons for this week. Okay, so yes. First of all, I just want to say this for any of you have ever had this, where you're in a win and in situation. literally every time the quarterback drops back and you're going against a receiver that can make you or break you. It is. I mean, I went through 4 different bottles of alcohol just to get through last night. But yeah, this was a heartbreaking loss. I needed to win and get in. Oh, thank you very much. Not only did I lose, but I lost by 0.38. I lost by 3/4 of a reception is what happened. And it was demoralizing. It was literally one of the last 2 or 3 offensive plays of the game. And what's even worse is the week before, I could have won and gotten in. Then I lost by 3 points. So that's a collective 3.38 points. But that 0.38 is hurting. And actually, I will say this: I'm renaming my team next year to the 38 special, because that is going to empower me and inspire me to just find a way to avoid that ever happening again.
All right.
So going back to last week, if we replayed it, now I'm not going to do that, save you the pain, but we were discussing your running back options, and your running back options were
Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara,
Murray and Kamara,
and Adrian
Peterson, and you were having a dilemma over Kamara and Murray. And I said, well, why not? Because it could be one or the other. Why not just start Peterson and Taylor? Now, if that happened in our league, you would have won by about 0.5 point instead of lost by.
Hey, in all fairness, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda here.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to start Adrian Peterson over Kamara. And Kamara had a great outing.
He didn't lose because he didn't start Adrian Peterson. Nobody in their right mind, if you have Taylor, is going to start Adrian Peterson over him. That's not why he lost. He lost earlier in the year. And it might not have even been his fault. It might have been injuries or COVID or whatever it is that led to the point where you had to win to get in.
Right, exactly.
So, I'm always one of these guys that when the refs mess up or when a kicker misses a field goal, that's not what made you lose. It's everything that led up to that. So
that's right.
I understand.
It's fun, and I'm sorry you lost, Keith, and we're all rooting for you. You know that.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you're doing well in your other leagues, if I'm not mistaken.
I got first round buys in 2 other leagues, really good teams. So that's nice. But
so you can stay on the show.
That's right. I've earned my keep. Damn it. But
okay.
This league obviously has a lot of importance to us. But
all right, so let's do this. The comments are piling up. Nobody cares about our personal lives here. We want to talk about what's going on in other people's leagues. First thing, I think Kenneth here says you dropped Jerry Jeudy and put in a claim for Devontae Booker. Even when Devontae Booker had 100%, or not 100%, but he had all the carries. With Jacobs being out, he still didn't produce anything.
That theme continued, right? That theme just continued.
Right. He's that classic, and we talked about it last week, when you have these running backs who come in and spell guys, and they're getting, 70 yards, 80 yards. And then he started, and I don't know his exact numbers, but they weren't very good as a starter.
He had 16 carries, 50 yards, and this is against the Jets. 1 catch for 1 yard. That's it. 5.6 points.
It's like it keeps that theme going. Just be careful. But this is his second week. The Raiders play. I don't know who the Raiders play this week, but certainly
Vegas plays the Colts, which is not an easy defense. So to run against for sure.
Okay.
So what else we got here? Oh my God! So that Keith's getting trolled by Alan, and let me see.
Alan, isn't it 420 somewhere?
It probably is. All right, this is what we're gonna do, guys. And enough of talking about how Brad and I are in the playoffs and you're not. And we don't have to keep mentioning that over and over again, even though it's true.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into the quarterback waiver wire updates, information, to give you guys advice if you want to know what's going on, you have questions, you want to know who to start, who to drop, who to stash away for the playoffs, or you just want to tell us your Keith story about why you weren't able to get into the playoffs. Let us know. You can give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ, or you can comment on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and we will break in and get right to your comments. That being said, let's jump into quarterbacks real quick. Now, we'll start out with some updates. We know that Phillip Rivers missed practice today. Guys, if you have Phillip Rivers, don't be too concerned about it. He's probably going to have surgery after the season, but it's really not going to affect. What they're doing is they're just resting him because they know Phillip Rivers can jump in without a problem. Drew Brees, he didn't practice today, but he is doing well with that punctured lung. He is getting better. This may be the last week that we see Taysom Hill as quarterback. However, I believe that even when Brees is better, you're going to start seeing a lot more of that Taysom Hill package coming in like they did earlier in the year. Daniel Jones, he missed week 13. Colt McCoy came in to lead the Giants, but he is expected back on week 14 against the Cardinals. So even though Colt McCoy had that incredible win over the Seahawks, I doubt they're going to bench Jones in favor of McCoy. I think Jones is a QB2 this week, so if he's available on your waiver wire, feel free to pick him up. There are probably better options to start, but he might be somebody you want to pick up. Rivers, even though we talked about his health, if he is available on the waiver wire, definitely grab him as well. Jalen Hurts, we all heard the news that Carson Wentz has been benched along with his millions and millions of dollars against the cap. So it becomes the Jalen Hurts show for now. Whether or not Doug Peterson is going to pull Jalen Hurts if he's starting to have a bad game and put Carson Wentz back in, we don't know. We do know that Wentz leads the NFL in interceptions with 15, number of times getting sacked of 50, and he's only averaging, guys, 6 yards per attempt.
It's amazing.
I mean, that is incredibly
this
bad.
was a guy that just a couple of years ago was an NFL MVP candidate the way he was playing. It is unbelievable how quickly things turn around.
Yeah, so, Hurts came in. He's a dual threat quarterback, right? He rushed for 30 yards. He passed for 100 and something yards at the end of the game. It's not like he's going to light it up, but who knows? To me, the bigger question is what effect does this have on Sanders? What effect does this have on Goddard or Hurts, or on Rieger, or on Fulgham? I mean, this is where I think it starts to trickle down. Personally, I think you're going to see more throws to the running backs and more throws to the tight ends. And
always the new quarterback's best friend.
Exactly.
Right.
Other guys, I'm not going to go into much detail, but other guys you can think about picking up. Andy Dalton didn't look too bad the other night. He's got a revenge game coming up this week against his old team, Cincinnati Bengals. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not going to be ready to come back this week, I doubt, but when he is ready to come back, he's going to be starting over Nick Mullins. So if you have an IR spot and you want to grab Jimmy Garoppolo, now might be the time before it's too late. Another guy, Baker Mayfield, believe it or not, he is available on a lot of waiver wires. There's some weeks where he won't even hit 10 points, and then there's some weeks he'll get you 25. But if you're willing to make that, take that chance, and he's available, you can think about grabbing Baker Mayfield. That's all the quarterback news. Let's talk about running backs.
Yeah, definitely some interesting stuff here with running back, starting with Josh Jacobs, who, again, did not practice and is looking like most likely he is not going to play, which leaves Devontae Booker, as a start. But again, another one of these guys that looks good as the RB2, but getting the starts really didn't do much. Cam Akers was taken off of the injury report, so he's looking good to play for Thursday's game. Justin Jackson is designated to return off IR. Not huge news there, but just keep in mind that could eat into some of Austin Eckler's playing time. Alexander Madison was sidelined on Wednesday. And that's just interesting if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, because there's always like 8, 9, or 10 carries that Cook will lose to Madison with him out. Not as much to share there. Christian McCaffrey, with his shoulder and thigh injury, was limited in Wednesday's practice. Still remains to be seen what's going to happen, but just definitely keep ahead of that throughout the week. And you want to look at those practice reports to see if he's going to be playing.
What I was reading about McCaffrey was actually it's not his ankle and not his calf. It's or his lower leg. It's actually he had a thigh injury that kind of popped up.
Right. Yep.
So that's really frustrating.
Really frustrating.
Especially since I have him and I was like, oh, he's back for my playoff game, and now I don't know. So we got to keep an eye on that.
Joe Mixon still not ready to play, looking like he's going to be out week 14. He's just been out forever, and this finally might be a week for Gio Bernard going against Dallas's defense. James Conner was activated off the reserve COVID list, looking on track to play week 14. DeAndre Swift, we just talked about this guy. Ketta's going to go grab him off waivers. He's expected to play. He was limited in Wednesday's practice. The concussion that sidelined him for a couple weeks was not the issue. He had a non-COVID related illness. He's looking on track to play. It's not written in stone yet, but he's looking pretty good as a possible start for Detroit. Antonio Gibson, and this is just a shame. I mean, this guy's just been fantastic. It looks like he's got turf toe, and his ability to play in week 14 is looking very much in doubt. And with turf toe injuries, those can go multiple weeks. So you're going to want to look beyond that. And after I'm done with the updates, we'll talk about guys to pick up to amortize for some of these losses. Todd Gurley has been dealing with the knee injury. This is why he was pretty limited in his last game. They were really looking at him as the third down back and maybe a goal line back, but he's dealing with the knee injury. More to come throughout the week on how he's going to practice, but that definitely has been limiting him and why we're seeing so much of Ito Smith and Brian Hill. So looking at some of the waiver wire ads, when we're talking about some of these updates and injuries, Frank Gore, who actually wasn't on this report, had a concussion, and it still remains to be seen if he's going to get through the league's protocol in time, which it doesn't look likely. Makes a very interesting pickup in Ty Johnson. Yes, I'm
when will you learn, Keith, week after week after week?
Hey,
talking about your Jet players.
Excuse me, Commish. Last week, Ty Johnson, 22 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, and if you think that's going to continue,
I don't know that it's going to continue. All I'm saying is, if you're looking for something, it's a very tasty matchup against Seattle. It's not a good defense. Now, granted, they might put up points, although they are looking very sluggish offensively, and the Jets' defense is a bit better than people are giving them credit for. All I'm telling you is this guy went.
That's why they fired their defensive coordinator.
Exactly. All I'm telling you is the guy went for 22, 104 and a touch. He's literally going to have nobody competing with him if you're desperate at running back because you had Gibson, maybe you had Josh Jacobs, and this Booker's not looking good. This is a possible what the hell heave as a flex player. Again, you're in the playoffs at this point. So I think there's a shot if you need them. I might look at that depending upon your team. Let's talk about what to do with the Antonio Gibson injury. You've got J.D. McKissic and Peyton Barber. And Peyton Barber's looking kind of like that first and second down between the tackles guy, where J.D. McKissic's going to be that pass catching, get you 8, 9, or 10 carries. You're not going to grab both. Which one are you going to go with? And if you're asking me, hands down, it is undoubtedly J.D. McKissic, especially if you're in a half-point PPR. And if you're a full-point PPR, this is going to be a very solid play in RB2. I think not even a flex, but an RB2. And he's owned in about 49% of Yahoo League, 60% of ESPN. So he is out there, not as large as you're going to see like a Ty Johnson or Peyton Barber. But if McKissic is out there, grab him. Last week, again, the rushing isn't there. It was only 5 attempts with 8 yards. But the guy had 10 targets and 10 receptions for 70 yards. I mean, he is a target monster. 2 weeks before that, the targets actually 3 weeks before that, he had 15 targets. The week before that, 14 targets. I mean, Alex Smith is a check down god. He's always been that way. So I really like that. And going against San Francisco, whose pass rush is getting a little bit better, I love McKissic in this position. So if he's available and you had Gibson, that's someone that you might want to consider. Adrian Peterson, we just talked about him. I still can't believe how available he is. Again, the numbers aren't great from a yardage perspective, but the guy's got 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, Detroit's doing a really nice job moving the ball. And he's really available in over 50% of Yahoo leagues and over 64% of ESPN leagues. And again, this is very, very contingent on whether or not DeAndre Swift plays, which is most likely. But if he does it, I would take a swing at getting Peterson off the wires, hold on to him, because in the last 2 weeks, he's had 31 rushing attempts with 4 touchdowns. The yardage is not quite there, but you got to like the rushing attempts, and I do like the touchdowns. It's not always sustainable, obviously, but again, if you're in a pinch heading into the playoffs because you have one of these guys, that's definitely something that you want to consider. And then lastly, we'll talk about Peyton Barber. Pretty available, like really available in 99% of Yahoo and ESPN leagues. He's available. What I like about him is when Gibson went down, McKissick was getting the catches, but Barber's getting the carries. He had 14 carries. Problem there? It only translated into 23 yards. That's not even 2 yards per carry, which is why I'm going to tell you to go after McKissick if he's available. But if you can't get him, I do like Barber, again, depending upon what you have and who's available on your waiver wires, because he's going to get the attempts. You can count on him for what I would say anywhere between 15 to 18 touches. That's a combination of rushing attempts and receptions. So again, if that's what's available for you, grab him. He's also going to be that goal line back. So that's going to shape up our running back injuries, updates, news, and waiver wire pickups. Hopefully you have things better than that. But again, everyone else is just probably not going to be available in your league, so not worth mentioning. Let's move on, unless we have any questions, which it looks like we do.
We do. There is a question here from Javi. Wants to know, he has to pick 2 here in a PPR, Gallman, Cooper, David Johnson, or Gaskins. Gallman right away jumps out at me. So in my opinion, Gallman is one of those. Definitely. What do you guys think on the other 3?
You know, I'm always, well, first of all, Gaskins I would probably stay away from.
Yeah.
You got Gallman, and then it's kind of between Cooper and David Johnson. I believe, you know, Cooper's got a nice matchup this week. Right? Yeah. And then David Johnson.
Who's Houston playing?
What's that?
I'm trying to remember who Houston is playing.
I'm not exactly sure who Houston is playing. Houston plays Chicago.
Oh.
So that's a little tough. I'd probably go with Gallman and Cooper here, honestly.
Who's
assuming
Dallas
that it's Amari Cooper. Dallas gets Cincinnati.
Oh. Yeah,
that's Dallas at Cincinnati. Yep. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd probably go with Cooper and Gallman here is my 2.
And I would do Cooper and David Johnson. Just, you know, when you have an option of having a running back, you know, I tend to go that way.
I do too, probably about 90% of the time. But just with Cooper, I don't know. I just think, you know, Cooper just has a history, at least from 1 week, for, you know, getting people where they need to go.
Right. All right, Kenneth, we got you back on the phone. What's going on?
I'd like to make a couple recommendations. I know y'all just went over the QB and the running back, but I have a couple recommendations of my own on those positions.
Okay, quickly.
I definitely recommend Kirk Cousins. He's playing Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And running back wise, my recommendation, I have to say Melvin Gordon. He's got a pretty good matchup.
Yeah. All right. So as far as Kirk Cousins, he's like your perennial streamer. If you need a quarterback, if you know, for some reason had Wentz as your quarterback or whatever the case may be, you know, he'd be a great pickup. Justin Jefferson has emerged. He's got Thielen. Yeah, definitely. As far as Melvin Gordon, you know, he had a decent week this week. You know, they still run Lindsey there. I just don't trust him enough. If you have other options, I'd go there. What do you guys think?
I agree. Melvin Gordon is kind of like David Johnson. I don't trust him. Kirk Cousins has been unbelievable. 300 yards and 3 touchdowns 3 weeks in a row. I mean, what else do you want from your quarterback? So, I love him. And but I agree with you about Gordon. Little chancy there.
Okay.
All right. From Jonathan, wants to know how we feel about Gesicki or Andrews. That's a really tough one because Andrews is going to be coming back. We'll talk about that in tight ends in a minute. But I don't know. It's hard to say no to Gesicki at this point. He's getting all of Tua's targets. He's got that chemistry with Tua right now. I know it's against Kansas City, so they're going to be throwing the ball. Miami's going to be throwing the ball a lot. So actually, until Andrews comes back and is healthy and shows signs, I'm still going with Gesicki here.
Yeah, he had a great week, and Tua seems comfortable throwing to him. And when you have a rookie quarterback that's comfortable throwing to a guy, that's who you want. Kind of like Burrow with T. Higgins, right? I mean, he was just keeps going his way and became a big target. So yeah, I will say with I will say
Lamar Jackson looked like a little return to form on what was it Monday night when they played. Yeah, just 2 nights ago, and
it seems like football's every night right now.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. I think there's 2 days this week without football or something like that. He looked really good. He looked like the guy again. And when he was the guy, Mark Andrews was lighting it up. I do agree. Gesicki has a nice chemistry with Tua. It's just there's been so many games when Tua was in, and it felt like Gesicki was an afterthought. And I had him in a league, and it was driving me nuts to see Durham Smythe and who's the other guy, Mac.
You're going to see that. You're going to see that. But I think at this point, they've opened up the playbook a little more for Tua. And I think, like I said, they're going to be playing catch up all night long against Mahomes. So, it's a toss up. What do we got from MathQuest here?
Next, I clinched a bye this week.
But good job.
Yeah, great. Okay. My team is wide receiver needy. Should I drop Kenny Galladay for Corey Davis, or will Galladay return by week 15 and be productive fantasy asset in the playoffs?
If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be doing a podcast from my home. Right. I will tell you that
actually during COVID you would.
Yeah, that's true. Look, we know Kenny Galladay is money when he's healthy and when he's in. But the fact that he didn't even practice this week, we know he's not going to be ready for week 14. And we won't know if he's going to be ready for week 15 until he gets onto the practice field, which he hasn't done yet. So I guess your league doesn't have an IR spot for him. But Corey Davis has been lighting it up lately. And if you need – I know you said you're on a bye this week. For week 15, we're not sure. But, I don't know who your other receivers are. But I don't think you can go wrong with Corey Davis.
But in any league that you're in, there's always usually a minimum 4, 5, 6 bench spots. I can't imagine.
Well, it depends what you have.
A spot. I don't.
I've been in leagues that have 4 or 5 bench spots, and you need a couple of running backs, and maybe you have other receivers, and whatever the case may be.
I just find it hard to believe that you can't stash Galladay somewhere. That's a guy that if he does come back in a week or two, that you could play into possibly your championship game. That's a guy you want on your roster. So I guess it's hard without knowing your roster and your league setup to imagine to tell you to drop Galladay. I mean, who are you toggling with other than Corey Davis at keeping over Galladay? Just curious of that.
For me, we'll see if MathQuest answers that. But for me, I'm dropping Galladay at this point. He hasn't played in 6 or 7 weeks, maybe. I don't even know the exact number, but you got to get someone that's going to be more reliable on your roster. It's a hip. Obviously, it's a problem since he hasn't come back. He was supposed to be back maybe about 3 weeks ago, and it's week after week after week, and he's still not practicing. So there's something more to that. And they decided they made a mistake by not putting him on the IR. I don't know.
Speaking of injuries, there's something I wanted to apologize to one of our listeners. Campbell had called on Sunday morning, asked about, I don't know if you guys remember, he was the one who asked about, do you go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Do you go with Bell? And what we said was, if obviously he had both. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire is starting, you can bench Bell. If he's not, you start Bell. And it turned out that CEH was active, and I actually let him know that. And I texted him to let him know when the news came across that he was active. I let him know. I don't know if Campbell started CEH, but if he did, then the egg's on my face here because he didn't get a single carry.
I think that hurt a lot of people this week. Once people saw he was active, they put him in as the starter, and probably hurt a lot of people this week.
Yeah, but there's no way to foresee that. All we can do is read the news, and it tells us he's active. He's active. And then what happens, like right before the game, where a decision like that happens? Look, we're not soothsayers. We read the tea leaves and we look at the data as best as possible based on the data. So and I don't think he did anything wrong there, Commish.
Yeah, that was just tough luck.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Okay,
all right, Brad, tell us about. I said, Brad, tell us about wide receivers. Give us some updates, your waiver wire selections, suggestions.
Okay, we'll go into wide receivers. All right, so you have DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel both on the COVID list. Looks like both of them will not play this weekend, which leaves one veteran, essentially wide receiver on that roster with Robbie Anderson, who probably is rostered in most leagues, but if he's not, I would go out and grab him. And then you have 3 or 4 guys that nobody's heard of and nobody's going to even pick up. And I wouldn't, but that could be good if CMC comes back. He could get extra catches. Anyway, Michael Thomas didn't practice today. It seems to be precautionary. He had a limited practice. Mims in for the Jets left the team for a family emergency. If he does not make it back tonight, then he will not clear COVID protocol, so he will not be able to play this weekend. So that's not such big news, but the big news there is Crowder and Perryman due for potential more targets because of that. Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel, both precautionary, most likely didn't practice today, but that's probably just, general rest. Chris Godwin.
I don't want Tyreek Hill to have COVID. I don't want to wish that on anybody, but I'm just saying maybe they should just be careful just so he doesn't get it and just keep him out of the lineup on Sunday. Just giving some recommendations to Andy Reid. That's all.
For the week after. And then Chris Godwin had his, medal taken out of his hands or whatever. But they do not expect him to miss any time. And then Larry Fitzgerald is off the COVID list, and maybe that'll help spark that Arizona offense, which has not done a lot over the past few weeks. But maybe that'll help there. Anyway, so that was about all the injuries or updates. It's funny, my waiver wires this week are so incredibly similar to last week. I had wide receivers last week, and I was looking it over, and I'm putting people down. I'm like, wait a second, I could have just used my list from last week. Last week, T.Y. Hilton, we said pick him up. Do it again. He's still 50% rostered. Right? Last week he was about 30, something like that. And now he's only 50. And what did he do? He only had 8 catches for 110 and a touchdown. And this week he gets the Raiders, who are over 20th in wide receivers. The Raiders have gotten, they've been lit up a few times. And all of a sudden, Rivers is like, oh, I got this guy T.Y. Hilton. He's pretty good. Let me throw him the ball. So look for him to continue having good games. Okay, Kiki Kuti. He is now only rostered in about 25%, a little under 25% of rosters. Well, going into last week, right? He wasn't doing much. What does he do? Goes 8 for 141. No touchdowns, but that's a nice game for even without touchdowns. He does get the Bears this week, who are in the middle of the pack against the pass. So keep an eye on that. It's a little tougher matchup, but still, it's Cooks and Kuti there. So he's going to be getting catches and looks. Gabriel Davis, he was only, I believe, 1% rostered last week. Now he's up to like 10% rostered, I think. And his last 3 weeks, he's got a touchdown for the 3 straight weeks. 3 for 68, 3 for 70, and 4 for 70. So he's making his catches count. He's not getting a ton of them, but they're not, 6 for 38 or 6 for 40. He's getting longer catches, which is appealing. Allen looked great, and with Brown on IR, it gives him more opportunity. So if you need a guy, go there. He's less than 10% rostered right now. So it went up from 1% to less than 10%. And that was a good guy to stash and get on your rosters. Definitely try to go out and get him if you need to stash somebody or even need to start someone. Perryman, I mentioned last week, he didn't have a great week, but now with the Mims situation, could have better opportunity. They do go against Seattle. Now, Seattle has not been very good defensively this year. So and the Jets, they're not exciting. They're awful to watch, but they do get yards. Crowder had 2 touchdowns this week, and we'll talk about that later with the under-overs that we discussed last week. But it might be an interesting pickup. Tim Patrick, Seth, I believe you brought him up last week when we were talking about it, and they go against Carolina this week. Patrick went 4 for 44, 2 touchdowns, making his catches count. He has 8 out of his 10 games played because he's missed a couple of games. He's got 4 or more catches. So he is getting looks. He is getting catches. Again, it's against Carolina, so it's they're down their 20th or 21st against the pass. So it is a nice matchup. So I would definitely look for him. A stash potentially is Ruggs. He had that late game heroics for the Raiders. Maybe it's a sign that he's going to kind of break out for the last few weeks. Maybe not. We'll see. But that's a stash. I'm not saying go out and get him and start him. There's a few other guys. Where'd they go? Oh, must be here. Oh, okay. That you might want to look at to stash, or if you need someone like in a jam. Rashard Higgins for Cleveland, Washington for Pittsburgh. Right, with all the other players they have there, Juju, Claypool, Deontay. Washington had a nice game. He took one for a long touchdown, but it wasn't like that was his only catch. And then Trey. Yeah, but I think he had 3 or 4 catches during the game. It wasn't like the one catch. Traquan Smith and Chenault in Jacksonville. So those are some of my players, the injuries, all those things. You guys have anything else on wide receivers? It's it'd be
no. I think what I want to do is jump into tight ends, but also give everybody an opportunity to give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ, or you can always comment at Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and we will get right to your comments. Speaking of wide receivers, Kenneth did go ahead and say that he recommends Mike Williams over Atlanta. I personally don't necessarily. But I think, there is a ranking, and maybe he's in the 15 to 20 range. Tight ends, he likes Eric Ebron, and he likes the Rams versus the Patriots or the Cowboys against the Bengals. Let's get into tight end news real quick. It was already brought up when Jonathan asked the question about Mark Andrews. He is off of that COVID list. He has been activated. Keith was correct when he said that he kind of was lighting it up the past few games before he got sick. Whether or not that continues, we don't know. But if you have him and you don't have anybody better, then you could feel safe starting Mark Andrews moving forward. Guys that are available for possible pickup. Drew Sample, his name has not been mentioned once this entire year on this show. However, know that he's drawn 4 targets in the last 3 straight games. And he's had 11 receptions in the past 2 games. And the kicker is they're playing against the Cowboys, who give up nearly 13 fantasy points to tight ends each week. So if you are desperate, there are worse people than Drew Sample out there. What about Logan Thomas, guys? Only 25% rostered still. Nobody believes in this guy. He's throwing touchdowns. He's catching touchdowns. If Logan Thomas is available, don't only pick him up, but start him. Other guys to think about, Cole Kmet with the Bears, Tyler Eifert with Jacksonville. We haven't mentioned Tyler Eifert in a long time, probably in a few years. Dan Arnold with Arizona, all of a sudden looking good. are Anthony Fursker in Tennessee. These are guys that if you really, really are desperate and you have to, you could think about using. But other than that, tight end's been a difficult position this year, and that's where we're at as far as possible pickups.
I think I got lucky with tight end this year at Darren Waller. And, during last week's games, I'm like, just stop and save some for next week.
Right, exactly. I know. I almost want someone, because I'm on bye this coming week. And I would like the coaches of the players, the coaches to bench my players for the week. Right. I really don't need Derrick Henry getting hurt. I need him for the playoffs. So can we just bench him? And I would be okay with that. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling the same way. Okay. This is what we're going to do. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can let us know. Give us a call. You can comment. We'll get right to it. As I say that, Jonathan is asking, should I avoid anything related to Goff and his receivers since they're playing Belichick, who just reminded us why he can outcoach another team last week? No.
No. Yeah, can I just say, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Belichick is a mastermind against rookie quarterbacks. Okay, so let's just start there. Let's keep in mind that New England, Cam Newton threw for less than 100 yards in that game, and they scored 45 points. That's insane.
Right.
The Rams are a different team than the Chargers. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into last week. I'd look more weeks before that. What New England is.
And Herbert's been hitting a little bit of that rookie wall lately. He's still unbelievable this year, considering he's a rookie.
We're talking about the Rams. Are you talking? Oh, you're talking about what happened last week.
No, what I'm saying is let's not overestimate the Patriots defense. They did a good job. There's no question. But the Chargers offense has been slowing down. And Cyclop makes a good point. Belichick is a mastermind, and he knows how to confuse quarterbacks. Goff is a little more savvy. He has been playing very well. He's got great receivers. So I wouldn't look at that game as New England had a very dominant defense last year. They had a major fall off this year. So who knows I don't think they're going to play at that level. Quite that level against a Sean McVay coach team.
Right. Yeah, it's like a chess match with Belichick.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Sean McVay's no slouch. He is very, very good.
Let me say this. When Miami played against the Rams and Brian Flores kind of used some of that Bill Belichick defense against Jared Goff, completely confused him. I think we can all agree because to the degree that Miami looked so good and our defense looked so good against the Rams, Jared Goff still threw for 355 yards.
Right.
And he had 61 passing attempts. Cooper Kupp had 11 catches for 110 yards.
20 targets. That was insane that game.
So no, Jonathan. If you want to bench Goff in favor of somebody else, maybe. You're not benching Woods. You're not benching Cooper Kupp. As far as the running backs, you got to be desperate to start any of them. But
can I ask a question? I'm just not seeing it. Well, let me look here. I'm just wondering where that game is. If that game is in New England or if that game's in, I guess Arizona. Oh, it's in Arizona. It's Arizona.
It's in. Oh, is it? Oh, that's right. They can't play in LA.
Right. Because
so that's a big deal when teams go across country on the road.
Advantage okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Just because weather. I didn't know if there'd be any weather issues, but out in Arizona, there shouldn't be any weather issues compared to New England, where it could be cold, a different scenario there.
Okay. Well, Jonathan, thank you for the question. We appreciate it. We appreciate, as always, you listening to the show. And again, questions, comments, let us know. We'll get right into it. But we each have some things that we want to talk about and bring up before the end of the show. And Brad, do you want to go first? Do you want to?
Yeah, I said last week, I found this site called Prize Picks, and it does under-overs for a lot of sports, but we focused on the NFL and the games, and I put some picks in. So I'm gonna put this up real quick. It was the picks that we did, and we can go over how we did. Let's see here. Okay, so we went James Robinson, Devontae Parker, Derrick Henry, Crowder, David
that
Montgomery.
was right. That was
and
right there.
that was it, right? And Brandon Cooks. So Seth had a Commish, went 2-3 in his picks, and he opted out on Crowder, who did hit the over. 2020 was a 50-50 split at 3-3, and I actually went 4-2 in the picks. Now I did two different pools, I guess, or two different bets,
Right.
and I lost one of them, and the other one I actually won. So I was 1-1 there. Then I put one in for last night. I did the over for Justin Tucker, which was 9, and I did the over for Dalton, which was I think 14.5, and he ended up with like 19 points. Their scoring system, and Des Bryant. I guess the way they do it, I had Des Bryant was like 7. And I thought because of the situation in this, I thought that they would throw to him, but he obviously didn't play, but they gave that as a win. So actually one
nice.
last, yeah. Or they gave it as like a certain percentage or something like that. So I actually won.
Can we talk about Tucker real quick?
Yeah.
He missed a 31-yard field goal.
I know.
Which broke a streak of 70 straight field goals under 40 yards. That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That might never happen again.
They're talking about it, and how many times that happened? They talk about it, and then you just knew he was going to do
right. This is his 21st straight free throw. He's been on such a roll. Yeah, come on, seriously.
I was on the phone with somebody when he missed it, and as I'm talking, I'm like, "Oh my god!" And they're like, "What?" And I said, "No, you don't understand." They're like, "What? What's going on?" I said, "No, Tucker just missed a field goal." And then the person I was talking to was like, "What?" Like they couldn't believe it.
Right.
But it's crazy. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer the minute he steps out of playing. But it was sad to see. But it also reminds us of how good the guy actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have picks this week, or we're gonna do that on Sunday, Brad?
Well, they actually do them like there's picks for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
It's because they do them by game. So I was able to do it by game. And they do it where you can't pick like a quarterback and a wide receiver from the same team. And then they have defensive players and they have all that. But I can go over a couple of them if we want to do it for tomorrow night very quickly.
Let's get a few in.
Okay. So how about Jared Goff at 19.2 points?
I say yes.
Chicago. Yes, you mean, you're going over?
I'm going over.
You say over? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well.
Okay, I'm going to go over as well. How about Damian Harris at 10?
Damian Harris at 10. That's a good one.
Rams. Huh. And they consider this is PPR, half-point PPR?
It's a full point PPR. But Harris just doesn't get touchdowns because Cam Newton hawks.
No, I understand.
Right,
the Rams actually only give up 14.9 points per game, fantasy points per game. Again, running back points per game. They have a really good rush defense, as we all know. So
he literally has to get 100 yards. You're right, because he doesn't get touchdowns. He gets 0 catches. So, I'm going to say no. I'm going to go under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under on this one, too. I think I'm going to go under on this one.
Okay. So how about both receivers for the Rams? You got Woods at 16 and Cooper Kupp at 15.5.
What is Kupp at?
15.5.
I'm going over. I mean, we got to look at some of these matchups, right? That's tough.
It's tough, yeah, because you cut like one of them is going to go off and the other is going to,
it's like a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett situation always. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Kupp usually is in the slot, and he's probably going to be covered by Jonathan Jones, who's had a few good games, but he's still not, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And then what was the line on Woods?
Woods is 16
or 16, yeah.
Yeah, and he's been getting about 10 catches a game.
I know, and he's got Gilmore, which concerns me. I'm going to go under on Woods and over on Cup.
Well, yeah, with Gilmore on Woods, I'm going to agree with that because Goff is very much like Wilson. Goff will look at the matchup and just pepper that person all game, just like Russell Wilson. That's
Just so we know, Stephon Gilmore, by the way, has not been playing up to the his status of being this great corner. Just so we know, but at the same time, I think he's gonna.
So I'm gonna go opposite on those two, only because I have Woods in my matchup tomorrow night, and I know that having that cornerback matchup, Woods gets so many of those one step, quick outlet pass, and then the screens down the field and let him run. And I think that they use him with that so many times that, he'll break one and, hope that gets, like a 30, 40-yard run. And then, he gets a lot of those mid-range catches. He doesn't necessarily have a lot of downfield. But, like last week, he had 10 for 85. So they weren't a ton, but he does get a lot of catches. So we'll see. Okay, so those are some.
So, Keith, what do you got?
So I wanted to talk about actually this year's rookie running back class, and I wanted a not just to grade them, but it's interesting. We had 6 prime rookie running backs come in that high draft picks looking to make an immediate impact on their respective teams, and I wanted your thoughts on these guys. If you see any of them possibly as number 1 or number 2 round picks next year. And if you see any of these really busting out, it's interesting. You got, and what we're talking about here is J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers, and Antonio Gibson. And what's amazing with these 6 running backs, I don't think anybody could have guessed that Gibson would be the number 6 running back in fantasy over these 5 other guys. I don't think anybody. J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, CEH, Akers, and Gibson.
Akers, okay.
So who would have thunk that Antonio Gibson would be the brightest spot of these 6? By far doing better. And the CEH has been good. He's the number 13. He's outside of top 10. That's not a first-round pick. Gibson comes back, let's say turf toe. That's just a couple weeks. He's fine. Is Gibson really a first-round pick next year over some of these other guys that aren't playing? Again, granted, some of these guys aren't in and haven't been in, so that's a big deal. But just your thoughts on this, because it's really interesting. DeAndre Swift is starting to emerge. He got hurt, but he's looking like the guy. Jonathan Taylor, he went off for a week or two because of COVID, but he's starting to become that 20-touch guy as well. J.K. Dobbins, just over the last 2 weeks, starting really to assert himself as probably the lead back there. Cam Akers over the last 2 weeks, looking a little better. Still, that's a mess over there. Nobody knows between him, Henderson, and even Malcolm Brown. CEH, yes, he is the bell cow back. But something? He's been lesser than I think what everyone was hoping for. It's not bad. He's certainly been serviceable, but he's not been that Andy Reid breakout back that everyone, I think, was expecting, especially after week 1. So I wanted your thoughts on this. Any guys that you would love to have on your team next year, anyone that you think you'd be drafting in the first 2 rounds, and just kind of grade our year's rookie running backs.
All right. So I have a lot of thoughts on this because this was actually part 1 of part 2 thing that I was going to talk about tonight. So I actually have already done my research to be able to answer your question. Before answering it, I want to make it clear to you guys and to everybody what that draft order was. And I'm talking about the NFL draft. So,
sure, of course.
So the first one to be drafted out of all of these was CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then Swift, then Taylor, then Akers, then Dobbins, then Gibson. And of course, we're not talking about James Robinson, who actually would be the 7th one in this. And
except he was undrafted.
But he was not one of the guys that I went back to our August 10th show. Before the season started, we had the same topic. We talked about this. And Keith and I both said CEH, obviously, he's going to be the guy who's going to be getting all the carries. This is after we found out that Damian Williams was going to be opting out because of COVID. And we said, there's no doubt CEH not only will be the best out of this group, but he will be a number one, he'll be a first-round draft choice. Brad said, no, by all means, mark it down. DeAndre Swift will be the number one rookie running back this year. End of story. And he ended up fourth out of this group. So the order
due to injuries, I think. Yeah,
it doesn't matter, and that's what I want to keep talking about. I mean, you can talk about injuries, you can talk about Gibson's injuries, you can talk about everybody's injuries.
I know.
Gibson ended up being the top running back at this point, then CEH, then Taylor, then Swift, then Dobbins, then Akers. Of course, Robinson. If we're going to talk about Robinson, we're going to throw him in there. Then he's going to be up there as well. But I was just talking about the ones that we had brought up in our August. So I found it very interesting. I actually drafted Gibson in the 7th round this year because I had faith in him. I had seen a video. They called him the human joystick, and it was very impressive. But keep in mind that Robinson actually has more points than all of these guys. And if we're going to talk about who we're going to draft in the first round,
Robinson. Yeah,
it's okay because he wasn't one of the. He wasn't
premier. No, but
and probably August 10th, Fournette was still on the Jacksonville roster.
Well, we talked about Vaughn because if Vaughn had been healthy, he might have been up there as well in Tampa.
True.
But the point is, Robinson would be the best. And if you're going to make me draft one of these guys in the first round, it's going to be Robinson over anybody else.
But is he I'm not making you.
No, I understand.
Robinson a first round draft pick?
No, I think I'm probably picking up guys that we know have gone more than 1 year doing well. Who was the guy from Baltimore who had that incredible year? Was it Collins? He was drafted high. And then didn't do anything the entire year. In fact, I think he's still in the league, and he played the third.
Alex Collins.
Yeah, Alex
Collins. He went to Seattle recently.
Right, and he had an amazing year, came back the next year, did 0. So, who knows what's going to happen? I'm picking more reliable players at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Gibson, certainly in the first 2 rounds. CEH, first 2. I think all of these guys, Dobbins, you're going to have guys going into next year. Is Mark Ingram going to still be in Baltimore? Then it's going to be the Dobbins show, right? Cam Akers starting to come up a little bit now. Last week, the past 2 weeks, he's been getting the carries. Last week, I think he had 22 carries or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see him emerge. And then if you take away Henderson or Brown, then all of a sudden it's the Akers show, right? So a lot of these guys, Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be the guy. He's healthy. Swift, Peterson's going to be another year older. Is he even going to be there? Kerryon Johnson obviously is, they're going to move.
Will Marlon Mack be there? Will he be taking?
That's what I say, but Marlon Mack's going to come back, and who knows? It's such a situation with a lot of these backfields.
Well, all running backs. It's completely.
That's where it's like, what? On this topic, let's all things being equal, everyone is healthy. Is CMC that first round pick again next year? I mean, I got to tell you, you look at a guy like.
I want to honestly, Keith, and I love this, but I want to save that one.
Okay.
Yeah, as we get later on in a few weeks from now. I really want to start talking about next year and prepping for next year and who are we going to be looking for. But let's talk about that next time, if that's all right.
Sure.
And I'm not going to bring up what I was going to bring up because we took a lot of time talking about the running backs. But I was going to also bring up the wide receivers and the fact that we have 9 that were taken in the first 2 rounds in the NFL. And I want to go through that list. So let's do that next time.
Okay.
And we'll go through that list of rookie wide receivers because that's a very interesting thing as well to go through. But I didn't mean to cut you guys off. Do you have any other thoughts on the running backs or any things that were brought up tonight?
No. It's it's people starting their playoffs, different leagues, and some playoffs start the week after. But you're positioning for your spots. So do those waiver wire pickups and stash some players and get ready for the playoffs.
And Brad, congratulations on your playoff.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yep. I don't generally make as many trades as I did this year, but my team was kind of flailing, and I started making trades. And after I counted all the trades I made, I traded with we have a 10-team league, the league that we're in. I traded with 5 different teams. So I traded with half of the league. So I was able to work things out.
You got to name your team next year the Billy Beaners, Moneyball.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, exciting times, and 2020. As much as we're going to give you crap about it, we are bummed you missed the playoffs. Yeah, by 0.38 points. God, that's brutal, man. You must have had nightmares last night.
I couldn't sleep. I honestly couldn't sleep.
But I know you're in the playoffs in other leagues, and another team that we share together. We're the number 1 seed, so that's exciting. Yeah. And in the league that I'm in with you, Seth, I believe I'm in the playoffs, and they start not this week, but next week.
Next week, right?
And so yeah, everyone have fun.
Yep, have fun. We've got game tomorrow night. We've got Hanukkah tomorrow night, and then Sunday morning we will be back on the air live at 11 a.m. We would love to hear from you. You can get your comments, your questions, and we will be there to help you Sunday morning. All right, so everyone have a wonderful night.
Good luck in your playoffs tomorrow.
Thank you.